Senator from Maryland.
Madam President, I rise today in strong support of Judge Jackson to be the 116th Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. As a senator, one of my most important responsibilities I have under the Constitution is whether to provide my consent to a president's nomination to the Supreme Court, the highest court in our land. The framers carefully designed our Constitution using an intricate system of checks and balances. The framers designed the third branch of government, the judiciary, to be an independent branch from the political branches of government, the legislature and the executive branch. Judges were given the unusual protection, unlike Congress and the president, to have lifetime tenure and to hold their offices during good behavior. Judges, therefore, do not have to fear retribution or loss of their office or diminution of their paycheck if they make an unpopular decision. So while the Supreme Court must show a healthy respect for the other co-equal branches of government, it must at the same time preserve its own independence and ultimately interpret the laws and constitutions of the United States. A critical part of the Supreme Court's role is to preserve and protect the Constitution and to make sure that all Americans are treated equally under the law. The marble entrance of the Supreme Court has etched above it the promise of equal justice under the law for all persons who enter. The Supreme Court must vigorously uphold the civil rights and civil liberties of all Americans and pay special attention to safeguarding and enforcing the constitutional rights guaranteed in our system of government. As we know from our history, the Supreme Court has not always protected all Americans, and indeed in the past has treated some Americans as less equal than others, simply due to their race, religion, or gender, among other factors. So let us remember the preamble of the Constitution, which declares that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, is certainly not a perfect union. But I do believe in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Americans know that the Supreme Court makes profound decisions every day that impact the lives of people across this country. The Supreme Court regularly tackles so many of the controversial issues of the day that involve issues such as voting rights, criminal justice, labor rights, environmental protection, and many, many more. Turning now specifically to Judge Jackson's nomination, she would replace Justice Stephen Breyer on the court, who fittingly she had clerked for after graduating from law school. Judge Jackson has an extremely impressive background and legal credentials and now sits as a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, often called the nation's second highest court. The American Bar Association's Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary gave Judge Jackson a unanimously well-qualified rating for the Supreme Court, which is its highest rating. The committee notes that to receive this highest rating, a Supreme Court nominee must be a preeminent member of the legal profession, having outstanding legal ability and exceptional breadth of experience, and meet the very highest standards of integrity, professional competence, and judicial temperament. Judge Jackson passed all these tests with flying colors during her Senate confirmation process. I had the privilege of chairing Judge Jackson's first Senate confirmation hearing in 2009 when President Obama nominated her to serve on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. I then had the opportunity to visit with Judge Jackson earlier this month, prior to her confirmation hearing. It was a real pleasure to speak with her. I'm familiar with her background and many of her rulings. She's also a former Maryland resident. We had much to talk about, as she had many connections to my state. Her brother served both as an infantryman and officer in the Maryland Army National Guard, during which he was twice deployed overseas. And he also served as an undercover narcotics recovery officer in the Baltimore City Police Department. Judge Jackson is eminently qualified. In our meeting, we talked about her personal experience and her commitment to equal justice under the law, especially for those who've had difficulty accessing our legal system. She discussed her work as a public defender and providing defense free of charge to most vulnerable members of our society. In this work, Judge Jackson carried out the mandate of the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution, which provides in all criminal prosecutions the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. She talked about her outreach to our next generation in terms of talking to students in high school and college, as well as our next generation of lawyers in law school. I'm often reminded of the words of my dear friend, the late Congressman Elijah Cummings of Baltimore, that our children are the living messages we send to a future we will never see. I do think Judge Jackson is having an important and ongoing conversation about democracy with our students. I frankly think she will be a powerful role model for so many that will follow in her footsteps, in particular women and women of color that see Judge Jackson break yet another barrier and glass ceiling at the Supreme Court. These students can believe that, yes, they belong, even in the highest court in the land, in the most elite corridors of power in our nation's capital. We discussed the importance of an independent judicial branch of government and protecting the rights of individuals against powerful special interests that would abuse their power. I was impressed with Judge Jackson's throughout our conversation. Judge Jackson exemplifies the American story and experience. Her parents were public school teachers, and Judge Jackson said she was inspired to go into law by watching her father study when he was in law school. Raised in Miami, Florida, she attended Florida public schools. She then went on to earn her BA magna cum laude from Harvard University and later her JD cum laude from Harvard Law School. She went on to clerk for 3 different federal judges, Judge Patty Saris in the District of Massachusetts, Judge Bruce Celia of the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and then Justice Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court of the United States. After working in private practice, she joined the U.S. Sentencing Commission as an assistant special counsel before serving as an assistant federal public defender in Washington. Judge Jackson then returned to private practice again before being nominated in 2009 by President Obama to serve as a commissioner and later vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission. As I noted earlier, I had the privilege to chair this confirmation hearing for Judge Jackson, after which she was unanimously confirmed by voice vote in the Senate in 2010. In this role, I noted that Judge Jackson often worked to find common ground with her fellow commissioners that brought very different backgrounds and perspectives to the commission. In particular, Judge Jackson made significant strides to make our criminal justice system and sentencing policy more fair and just. For example, she worked on a bipartisan basis to effectively implement the Fair Sentencing Act, which addresses the 100-to-1 disparity in the law regarding crack cocaine and powder cocaine, which had led to disproportionate and discriminatory treatment of minorities in our criminal justice system. I am hopeful that Judge Jackson can use these same skills of finding common ground with individuals from different backgrounds and build a consensus as a justice on the Supreme Court. In 2013, President Obama nominated Judge Jackson to serve as a U.S. District Judge for the District of Columbia, and again, the Senate unanimously confirmed her nomination by voice vote. As a district court judge, Judge Jackson wrote more than 500 opinions and considered a wide array of issues that would come before the Supreme Court. She has a real breadth of experience here, including cases involving constitutional, civil rights, and national security issues, administrative issues involving federal agencies, environmental issues, criminal law, and procedural issues, and matters involving government transparency. On the bench, her record clearly demonstrates that Judge Jackson impartially applies the law and precedent to the facts in a fair and impartial manner, regardless of her own personal views on the subject. Judge Jackson took special care to make sure the parties before her understood her approach to deciding cases, and she issued clearly reasoned decisions. As Judge Jackson said in her confirmation hearing for the district court circuit, when I work with clients as a defender, most of my clients didn't really understand what was happening to them. No one really explained to them what they were supposed to expect, so they did not know where things might have gone wrong. Therefore, as a judge, Judge Jackson said that she will take extra time to communicate with the parties. I speak them directly and not just their lawyers. I use their names. I explain every stage of the proceeding because I want them to know what is going on. In reviewing her record, I noticed that Judge Jackson's analysis and decision-making has led her to rule both for and against the government in different cases, both for and against employers and workers, for and against criminal defendants and prosecutors, based on the merits of the case and her application of the law to the facts of that particular case. In her confirmation hearing and written answers to questions for the record, Judge Jackson pledged to support and defend the Constitution, and further pledged to rule without fear or favor or prejudice or passion, consistent with her judicial oath. She indicated she understood the limits of the judicial role and the importance of adhering to precedents of the court. And just last year, President Biden elevated Judge Jackson to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. The Senate confirmed Judge Jackson to this position by a bipartisan vote of 53 voting in favor in an evenly divided Senate. In that confirmation hearing, Judge Jackson again stressed the importance of courts having a duty of independence from political pressure, meaning that judges must resolve cases and controversies in a manner that is consistent with the law, despite the judge's own personal views of the matter, and this is even when respect to cases and controversies that pertain to controversial political issues. She's committed to carry out her oath as a judge. She particularly noted that she did not pay attention to who was in the administration when ruling on cases, which is consistent with her case record ruling both for and against Trump administration in different cases. Judge Jackson did a superb job during the recent confirmation hearings, as our presiding officer knows, and consistently impressed me with her talents. Not only was she eminently qualified, we already knew that about her outstanding qualifications. Not only was she in command of all the legal subjects, we knew that she would excel in discussing the law and her job as a judge. But her demeanor in the face of repeated and often outrageous assaults by Republican members of the Senate truly set her apart. She maintained her judicial temperament throughout this week's hearings and showed why she will be a major factor on the Supreme Court. Judge Jackson's confirmation hearing reinforced to me how critical it will be to have her on the Supreme Court. Members of the committee unsuccessfully tried to distort Judge Jackson's sentencing record. The record clearly rebuts these charges, as Judge Jackson's sentences are well within the judicial mainstream, and Judge Jackson often followed the recommendations made by the probation office. The ABA Standing Committee debunked several of these myths when they analyzed Judge Jackson's record as part of their review process before her confirmation hearing. The ABA testified at the hearing that we did speak to various prosecutors and defense counsels for Judge Jackson. None of them felt that she demonstrated bias in any way. One prosecutor said, I did not observe any bias, and the judge was fair to all sides in connection with sentencing in all aspects. We asked pointed questions as it relates to bias, whether it be to defendants, whether it be to government, and we found no bias. That was the ABA. In terms of the allegation that Judge Jackson is soft on crime, the ABA testified that we heard consistently from not only defense counsel, but prosecutors, how unbiased Judge Jackson is. We heard phrases like doing things by the book. For example, one prosecutor described the sentencing hearing involving a very high-profile, sensitive national security matter. When she said it was classic Judge Jackson. What really impressed this prosecutor was that after oral argument, Judge Jackson took a recess, went back to her chamber, and when she resumed the bench, came out with a sentencing that was more in favor of the government. What more impressed this prosecutor was that the judge's ruling included arguments that had been made by both the defense and prosecutors during oral argument. It's not as if she came into the hearing with her mind made up. She listened to what counsel on both sides said and came up with a sentence that the prosecutor was quite happy with. Several prominent law enforcement organizations support Judge Jackson's nomination. The Fraternal Order of Police wrote, from our analysis, Judge Jackson's record and some of her cases, we believe she has considered the facts and applied the law consistently and fairly on a range of issues. There is little doubt that she has the temperament, intellect, legal experience, and family background to have earned this appointment. We are reassured that should she be confirmed, she would approach her future cases with an open mind and treat issues related to law enforcement fairly and justly. And the International Association of Chiefs of Police support Judge Jackson's nomination. They wrote, "When the IACP chooses to support an individual, we do not take it lightly, and we take into careful consideration their background, experience, and previous opinions issued as they relate to law enforcement and criminal justice issues. During time as a judge, she has displayed her dedication to ensuring that our communities are safe and the interests of justice are served. We believe Judge Jackson's years of experience have shown she has the temperament and qualifications to serve as the next Associate Justice on the Supreme Court." That was the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Judge Jackson has an unusual broad range of support from law enforcement groups, crime victims and survivors, business associations, and civil rights groups. Former D.C. Circuit Judge Thomas Griffith introduced Judge Jackson at her confirmation hearing. Judge Griffith, a President George W. Bush appointee, vouched for Judge Jackson's careful approach, extraordinary judicial understanding, and collegial manner. Has demonstrated record of excellence, and I believe based on her work as based on the facts of the law and not in a partisan manner. And then former President George H.W. Bush appointee, who recently advised Vice President Pence, has absolutely qualified to serve on the Supreme Court and is highly credentialed and experienced in the law as any nominee in recent history. Her colleagues have given her the highest ratings, those that know her best, those that have worked with her. It gives us all great confidence in her qualifications and ability to serve on the Supreme Court. A group of conservative lawyers, many of whom served in previous Republican administrations, wrote in strong support of Judge Jackson and said, "While some of us might take different concerning particular positions she has taken as a judge, we are united in our view that she is exceptionally well qualified, given her breadth of experience, demonstrated ability, and personal attributes of intellect and character. Indeed, we think her confirmation on a consensus basis would strengthen the court and the nation in important ways." Madam President, it's long past time for the Supreme Court seat of a highly qualified black female attorney as a member. As we strive to provide equal justice under the law to all Americans, she would be only the 6th woman out of 116 justices to serve on the Supreme Court, and only the 2nd woman of color and the 1st black woman. A Justice Jackson will bring sorely needed diversity to the Supreme Court, both demographically and professionally. As the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights noted, this professional diversity is another critical step in ensuring our courts look more like America. Judge Jackson will be the first justice with any significant criminal defense experience since the retirement of Justice Thurgood Marshall in 1991, and she would be the only Supreme Court justice to have served as a public defender. Public defenders play a critical role in our legal system, yet they are vastly underrepresented on the federal bench. At all levels of our judiciary, there is nearly 6 times as many former prosecutors on the federal bench than former criminal defense lawyers, and just over 5% of the federal appellate judges have experience as a public defender. Our highest court should reflect the diversity of the legal profession, and Judge Jackson's meaningful experience is greatly needed on our Supreme Court. I believe that Judge Jackson will faithfully uphold her judicial oath, which contains a special provision whereby judges promise to administer justice without respect to persons and to do equal rights to the poor and to the rich. I believe that she respects the separation of powers and checks and balances in our system, and that she is committed to uphold the civil rights and civil liberties of all Americans. I will proudly vote to confirm Judge Jackson so she will become Justice Jackson. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.